From the studios of Foxborough Cable Access, located in the center of Foxborough, Massachusetts, you are watching Around Foxborough.
Hi, my name is Jared Craig. Welcome to a special edition of Around Foxborough here at FCA TV. At Foxborough Cable Access, we are sharing up-to-the-minute information online and on our channels about the COVID-19 coronavirus. So please check Facebook, Twitter, and our website, fcatv.org, for up-to-the-minute news as it comes in. Thanks for joining us today. We have two very special guests from our town today. We have our town manager, Bill Keegan. Thanks for joining us, Bill. And
Thanks, Jared.
Thanks for being here. We also have Tom Kenvin, our Executive EMS Officer and Public Health Nurse. Tom,
good afternoon.
Thank you for being here. Bill, the first thing I want to ask you about while I have you here is that we declared a state of emergency in Foxborough last night. Could you talk a little bit for those of us at home who might be a little nervous when we hear the word emergency in these times about what that means and what it really does for us?
First of all, thanks for having us in today because clearly we are in uncharted territory. This is something that in the 36 years I've been involved in local government, I don't think I've ever seen something just quite like this. But the one thing that I will say is that we have an extraordinary team here, extraordinary public safety team, and the ability to really help the community the best way we can. Declaring a state of emergency is something that was recommended to us by our legal counsel. Also something that we're following suit on, recommended, which was done by the federal government, the state government, and then now the local government. And the reason why we do that is not that we're in any level of heightened emergency here in Foxborough. In fact, right now we have no real reported cases. We have a couple that we're keeping an eye on, but nothing that's been confirmed here in Foxborough. But it's just the fact that in terms of declaring a state of emergency, it means that we then become eligible for federal and state funding.
Okay.
In the event that once this situation passes, which it will pass, and we'll be in a position that we might be able to reclaim some of the costs that we've incurred as a result of this particular situation.
So it doesn't mean we're getting funding today, it just means we're eligible in the future?
That's correct. And it's a mistake I think some communities make when they get into a major emergency situation, is that they never declare a state of emergency, and then later they become ineligible to receive funding from state and federal sources once that happens. So we did it early on, and it also allows the town more flexibility to do things, to work with our labor unions, to work with our services, to get materials to us quicker. If we're in a state of emergency, we can certainly make that known to other agencies that we are in that condition, and as a result, we become more eligible and quicker to get the material to us during that situation.
And are there other towns around us that have also declared a state of emergency?
There are. I can't tell you exactly how many have, but it's an evolving situation, something that's happening on a day-to-day basis. But there are several that have done the same.
Okay, great. And you said not much has changed, really. You said there might be a few cases you're keeping an eye on. Can you talk any more about those?
Right. So Tom, Deputy Chief Kenvin here is also is sort of our local expert when it comes to dealing with the actual cases themselves, and also can provide some good information on how to protect yourself in this situation. But in Foxborough, we're fortunate we haven't had any cases that have been confirmed. There are a few that we're testing for, but there are no cases that we've actually been confirmed. So Tom can tell you a little bit more about the testing piece and tell you a little bit about what the protocols are for dealing with that. But it's good to know that we are in the town government taking appropriate steps to protect our workforce because we need to continue to provide the services that the community needs. We also so when people do come to Town Hall, they won't be allowed free access into the building at this time. They can call and make an appointment. We will ask you a series of questions before you come into the building.
Great.
And also we will take things electronically. We will also deal with things by phone, and we'll also deal with things through people putting things in a mail slot. So we're continuing to provide services but on a much more limited basis, given the nature of what we're dealing with.
So you don't, if I can reflect back, what I hear you're saying to me is, because we've declared a state of emergency, you don't want people to panic. There's nothing
That's correct.
that people
Right.
need to get upset about. It's just making us eligible for federal funding for
That's
the deadline.
exactly right. Yeah,
Business as usual,
Yes.
with some social distancing.
Right. So business as usual. Well, obviously, nothing's usual in a situation like right now.
Yeah.
But it's business as usual for the most part. Clearly, we're doing things differently. We're looking at our staffing situations to see what's the best way to maintain social distancing on a staffing level, so that we don't get any of our employees in connection with the virus itself. So we're trying really hard to protect them, so we can continue to provide services to all of the community.
And as of right now, town government's functioning as it was
That's right.
2 months ago, 3 months ago.
That's exactly right.
Great, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, Tom, if you could talk a little bit about the testing, and maybe for people who are watching at home, they've noticed we usually are having a more intimate conversation around a desk. We're trying to also, establish that 6 feet as much as we could here to get some distance here. And can you talk a little bit more about that, and maybe other precautions in the tests?
Sure. So obviously, I think most of us have been experiencing or trying to understand what social distancing really is. So COVID-19, obviously coming out of Wuhan, China, we're learning more about it every day. I think researchers are learning more about the characteristics of the disease every day. But one of the things we think we have a good handle on is how the disease is spread, and it's spread by droplet. And that is when you sneeze, cough, or expiring deeply, moisture droplets will exit the cavities and propel, and they're thinking that it propels about 6 feet. So they're giving you that spacing of 6 feet, so that in the circumstances where someone who may be infected coughs or sneezes, that in theory those droplets would drop before they reach you. Regards to contacts, so we're receiving a lot of calls now for people who are concerned they may have come in contact with someone, or that they have kids coming back from college who knew someone that was maybe tested positive. We're really not considering those contacts, but if you have a contact with a known positive, or if you have symptoms right now, there are two things we're looking at in the community for public health, and that kind of ties into why Governor Baker has declared the state of emergency, why Mr. Keegan has declared the state of emergency. We're trying to create that distance. So the two things we're looking at now are quarantining and isolation. Quarantining is when you've been asked to stay home for 14 days and just kind of monitor your symptoms. That doesn't mean your household's in lockdown. That means kind of you're hanging tight. You're making sure that the surfaces in your home, the high-touch surfaces, are cleaned well, that you're practicing excellent hand hygiene and cough hygiene, and you're kind of keeping that same social distance in the house, just to make sure that if you do come down with something, that you're minimizing the possibility of transmission to your household members.
If I may, you said you've been asked. Who's typically doing the asking to quarantine? Is it a medical professional, a boss?
Well, right now it's a great question, because it's kind of going past. So right now, we have what's called the MAVEN, which is the Massachusetts Virtual Epidemiological Network. And what that does is the DPH, the folks of the DPH, the people who study diseases and the spread, will contact local public health officials and say, listen, this person has been in contact, so we're going to put them on isolation. You need to follow up with them. However, the rate of contact now is superseding, I think, the DPH's ability to succinctly interact and inform local public health officials. So people are being told by the healthcare providers or things of that nature that they should be self-isolating. Self-isolation should be, arbitrarily just doing it probably won't solve the problem, but going through your healthcare providers or going through your public health officials for actual guidance on when you should self-isolate and when you shouldn't, I think is very warranted. So to that question, if you've had contacts, if you've had a known contact, or if you come from a country where you're seeing escalation of disease, that's when we want you to do the self-isolation or the self-quarantining. If someone was to come back as a positive, that's when we consider the isolation protocols. And that really is a lockdown of all household members until diseases have they have the cessation of symptoms, everyone's healed. And technically, according to the CDC right now, if you've tested positive for COVID-19, you need 2 negative tests separated by 24 hours to actually define you as clear and able to return back to the public without fear of spread. Again, the disease is so ambiguous right now in the early stages. We have allergy season coming out. You have people who are still getting the flu. So I get reports on the flu through the DPH on a daily basis. like Mr. Keegan said, we have no confirmed positive COVID-19s, but we have 2 to 3 flus coming through every day.
With similar symptoms.
Right. So you're going to have the fever. You're going to have the shortness of breath. You may have some muscle aches. You may have some, again, difficulty breathing, and the cough. The cough is a big one, so the cough and the fever. So really what they're doing right now, even though they're loosening the requirements for testing for primary care physicians, as we have commercial labs that come on board to help out the state lab and the CDC labs. So it's freeing up the ability, if you go to the doctors or if you call your doctor and say, listen, I'm having these symptoms, they can order a test for you. Now, the testing process, getting those tests out in rapid fashion, is going to be the next challenge. So I know that Norwood Hospital, Stewart Healthcare is working diligently to make sure they create the social separation, but they also tend to needs of their patients by creating the tent out front. We can go in and get your swab and you leave without ever entering the building.
That's at Norwood. You know that's for a fact that's happening
in Norwood Hospital right now, yeah.
Okay.
So having said that, if you find that you're sick, they're asking that you stay home unless you have real medical issues. Or you have a real medical emergency, you call 911. But if it's just for something that you think you're not feeling too good on, they're advocating to kind of stay home, contact your primary care provider, and come up with a plan that way. And then if you are deemed to come into the doctor's office or a medical building, that you give them a heads up so they can prepare for your arrival based on your symptomology.
Do you know any online resources about if people want to or feel the need to or advised to self-quarantine? Are they given the information about how to do that you mentioned? Or
they can always contact Foxborough Board of Health, Foxborough Fire Department. We have those documents to free up. I can send those to anyone in terms of the guidance. So we have those references are made available for folks that need it.
Great.
But we can also assist in that.
Great. It's a question for both of you. I know my wife is fortunate enough to be in a position where she's been allowed to and encouraged to work from home since Friday, I think was the last day she went into work. Are you encouraging people who can work from home to work from home? How are you handling people who can't or advising them, either of you? So
some of the things that we're working on right now is to put in place all the technological capabilities for us to do that. It's one thing to just say that people have a laptop and can work from home. In our case, for the most part, we have to work with our financial systems. We have to work with our entire website.
We're talking about town hall when you
talk
about us.
Yeah, the town hall meaning us is exactly right. So, in all of the various our departments can certainly work in that capacity, but they have to have a VPN connection. They have to have a town issued computer because what we don't want is have a connection into our systems that may have potentially a virus coming in from somebody's personal computer.
Sure.
So we have to have clean connections on both sides, and so that sort of complicates things a little bit. We're in the process of doing that at this point.
Great.
There are a number of things that we're looking at. We're looking to rotate staff so that we don't have as few staff as possible in the various offices. The one thing that we have challenges with is some of the field personnel, public works, water, sewer, maintaining the services in those areas so that we can continue to have those services provided to the community on a regular basis without interruption. Also, police and fire. I mean, they're out there all the time, and actually more so probably involved with connecting with the public that may in fact be sick with COVID-19. So we have to take a very serious precautions with them, and make sure that they're kept safe throughout this entire situation. But
as a representative of the town too, I feel like I should thank those people who are out there doing that for us. I mean,
absolutely.
Even this morning, today was my trash pickup, and I'm willing to get out there. I'm like, business as usual. Life is going on. These people are still out there working, and we thank that.
Well, we're trying to make the world in Foxborough at least feel like we're uninterrupted in terms of what we provide for the community. But I think the challenge is that we're not going to be able to provide all of those things, and I hope people will become understanding, or at least understand the situation that we're in. That we're not going to be able to do everything we used to do, and that was, answer every question about a bill that may come in, or resolve it for you instantaneously. Because now we're doing things on a limited basis, and we're focused on trying to make sure maintain services at least on a very minimal basis.
And so people that might have a problem with bills, or I hate to call them minor issues, because to someone that might be a major issue that they're dealing with, but are there stopgaps in place, or are they going to get dinged if they can't pay that bill?
So here's what we've been telling folks is that if you in fact have a situation which you think is significant, where it requires you to have a transaction with the town, contact us, contact the appropriate department. And if people don't know the right department, call the town manager's office, the selectman's office, and we'll be happy to help people at 508-543-1200. And we'll answer those calls and we'll direct you accordingly. But I think if you have a must-do transaction, you're closing on a house, or you need a final inspection, a certificate of admissible liens, all those things that goes with that. We'll continue to do those kind of things, but call us and we'll set up an appointment to have you come in, or just give us the information over the telephone or online, and we'll be happy to give you the information you need. We've set up areas downstairs in the lobby area where a person can meet with somebody, but we certainly will keep a safe distance from you, and certainly we want to try and limit the amount of conversation that goes on during that transaction. So if you have questions, put them in writing to us, or at least let us know on the phone so we can answer them ahead of time.
Great. Emails and okay.
Emails are absolutely accepted and encouraged in this situation.
Okay, great. I guess we've talked a little bit about you being in contact with other people, other towns. Are you also in contact with people on the state or federal level? And what information do you get from them? And I think it's important for me as a Foxborough citizen to know that we're not alone in this. We're the nation, the world is facing this issue, and we're poised, from what I'm hearing from the two of you, pretty well right now.
So I've had conversations with both with our state representative, Jay Barrows, and our state senator, Paul Feeney. I spoke to both of them yesterday. They're working closely with Governor Baker on relief legislation for cities and towns. As the luck would have it, so to speak, that we are in the middle of a situation. We're preparing for town meeting, which is coming up in May. Our elections are coming up in May. And of course, if this scenario continues on through that period, we may be forced to postpone them to different times. Now, what's significant about the elections is the fact that there are a number of positions that are going to be open. So those positions will probably stay with the person that's currently holding them until the election is actually held.
Do you decide that, or
it's done through a legislative process, and so the governor has filed legislation to address that situation as needed. And so the other thing is town meeting coming up, and we're at a point where if we postpone the meeting, it could be in June. It could be we're actually in the second week of May. But it could be in June, and we actually hold the meeting. Or we may have to hold it in July, depending on the situation, which means that the budget process will get delayed until a later part. But if it gets held in June, we'll be fine, because we'll start on July 1. It'll be fine. If it goes in July, there was legislation that's been made available to us that will allow us to charge 1/12 of a budget into the next fiscal year without authorization. We have to go through the Department of Revenue to get that approval done, but it'll happen. Because it's been authorized through the legislature.
So that's good for people to hear who might be thinking a little longer term. How is this going to affect our local government? And you're saying we have measures in place. There's options available to us.
Right.
I'd like to talk a little bit more with Tom, bring you into the conversation again, if that's okay. And Bill said that maybe we need to have some measures in place for if this goes into May. Should we expect this to go past April? I know my kids are already out of school until I think it's April 6th or 7th. We're trying to homeschool here. Should I be preparing for months, weeks? How are we looking right now?
That's a great question. And I think that based on everything we know now, I know from a public health or public service point of view, we are planning for a long duration event because that's how we have to plan for it. Again, we don't know the characteristics of the virus, and we had talked a little bit earlier off camera with regards to, some of the science that goes behind some of the data that's been collected with regard to social distancing. And this really is getting back to community, and I think that's one of the things that's so great about Foxborough right now is that really is a strong community, and I think that people get it. So really what we're trying to do is trying to wall off that outside world to keep it from getting in, and hence slow the spread of COVID-19. But with that being said, in order for this to happen, it's critical that it goes down to the individual level. The individual has to be accountable for what he or she does with regards to slowing the spread. And if we all do that, if we all can really buy into the message right now that, I mean, this is pretty serious, and I think the NBA did it best by saying, hey, this is a real deal. We're closing down sports to get the message
That's what got
across.
me nervous.
Right? So you think about it, so this is really something that we're trying to do, and it's unprecedented in terms of, the last time we had something like this, it was prior to social media technology, all the advances that we have now in technology. So really, there is no excuse why we shouldn't be doing this,
Right.
Other than, the attitude. It's all about how we look at it. But with that being said, if everybody does what they're supposed to do, I think that we can get over this a little bit quicker.
Great.
But we really don't know all we need to know about the virus as of yet, in terms of what's its longevity, is it gonna cycle back again, what's the weather gonna do. But in theory, I think if we all take the measures at the individual level, we can do our part to slow it down.
And in the immediate future, it feels like we are. It feels to me like we're doing that. And would you two agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been listening to the news like everybody else has, and I've heard the president say they could go into July, August of this year. I actually heard this morning, listening to the healthcare professionals say, well, maybe not so long. It could maybe it's June, May, June. They could go into that period of time. But it's all about when it cycles down, and so we could actually peak in April of this year, and then it could go down the other way. But then there's still going to be cases around. So the question is, do we still have to be as vigilant as we are now in terms of doing those things that we've been doing right now? And the answer is probably yes, because we want to make sure that we don't bring back a significant amount of cases based upon the fact that it's still present in the area.
It's all about rounding that or flattening that curve.
Flattening the curve, exactly.
I think you said that off camera earlier. And so flattening the curve doesn't mean that the virus is going to go away and disappear. It just means that our healthcare system can deal with it. Tell me if I'm wrong here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
I think I guess I want to ask a question on behalf of our viewers. It's not a matter of if there's going to be a case in Foxborough, but when, and how do we avoid, as town leaders, how do you avoid the panic that, someone had it, it's Stop and Shop, and now no one's going to Stop and Shop. I don't think we want that, right? We want there to be a measured, calculated response. What kind of emergency preparedness, or when Facebook first finds out that there's a case in Foxborough, how do we quell those fears and the knee-jerk reaction? Well, I don't want it to happen to me.
I'll just say that I don't know that we can quell everybody's fears. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But I think that people should know and understand that we're doing everything within our power to try and address this in a very calm, cool, directed, and very systematic way. And I think that's the best response we can give in those situations. Mansfield has a case now, and I'm sure there's a heightened level of concern there, but that doesn't mean that we're going to discontinue what we've been doing right along, and that is to continue to practice all the things that we've been doing and to maintain that distancing and all the steps that we've been taking to, the clean hand, the hand washing, and all those things that go along with that, to make sure using the Purell, if you can find it, by the way, that's the big challenge.
This is gold.
Yeah, that's actually right. But taking all those appropriate steps is the best thing we know how to deal with that at this point in time. And ultimately, somebody will get it, and we just know that that'll be the case. And but know that and quite honestly, we're in a good spot because we've got great paramedic team here. We've got great services. Tom actually heads up the paramedicine program for the town. We're the first paramedicine program in the state, by the way, I think, isn't it? Are we one of the first?
What is paramedicine?
The community paramedicine program.
Well, the paramedics. So Foxborough, we were the first fire department in the state to blend emergency medical services and public health nursing. So we were the first ones to kind of bring all that in, because our Chief Mike Kelleher, views public health as an avenue of public safety. Right. And it really is. So, and it's evident as of right now. So, and these are the measures that he put in a while back are now starting to come to fruition. And we're starting to see that, we're really in a good place in terms of response capability. However, that's obviously subject to change as time goes on to see, resources. I think the biggest problem for us right now in a pre-hospital environment is, like everywhere else, access to protective equipment.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think that's the biggest struggle right now. Other than that, I think that our folks are doing really well. We're practicing social distancing in the fire station. We're keeping things clean. We have cones up. Even the guys, when it comes down to exercising for fitness or duty, are actually spacing out and making sure they stagger things. So we're really cognizant down to the individual level in the firehouse so that we can maintain continuity of services, like Ms. Keegan had said.
Excellent.
So little did we know that, and Tom has just only been with us less than a year in our organization.
Great timing.
So little did they know, I didn't think we were that smart, but we are.
Yeah,
apparently, because we hired a really good guy, and not only that, but he's put together a really good program. And I don't think he ever knew that we'd be needing his services this quickly. None of us did, but we're glad he's here, and glad he's doing a great job for us, and glad the community should be glad he's here as well, because we're able to take things in a direction that nobody else has been able to do in any other town. I think coupled with that is the communication piece of this, and that is the new regional 911 services through SEMRIC has actually been a huge bonus for us, because not only are we tracking the cases in Foxborough, we're tracking them on a countywide basis, we're tracking them on a statewide level, and we're tracking them on the country and as well as around the world. So we're tracking that information on a daily basis. Every single morning at 7:30, I talk with Fire Chief Kelleher. We got to get my daily update about what's going on, what's happening in Foxborough, and particularly what's happening in Foxborough, but certainly what's going on in the region. There are 43 cases that we know of in Norfolk County right now.
Okay. That sounds high to me.
It sounds relatively high, but there was most of those cases were associated with an incident in Norwood, where one person that actually I believe attended the Biogen conference was at an event and actually infected a number of people at that event. So that caused a little bit of a spike in the Norfolk numbers because of that. So there's probably about 28 to 30 cases, I think, from Norwood alone in that one situation. So we're looking at that as a little bit of a blip, but generally speaking, I think we're in pretty good shape in this region.
Good. I know just talking to both of you has quelled quite a bit of my anxiety that I hadn't realized was building up quite so much. But Tom, one thing that we talked about before we went to air was a little bit about the mental health piece.
Right.
I don't know how qualified you are to talk about mental health, but could you maybe tell people some things that they might need to know, or going forward? I'm realizing I have some anxiety. Maybe people at home might want to seek some help. Do you have resources for them, or could you speak to that?
Certainly, that's something we can make sure we put up for access on the web pages as well. But I think part of it, just to speak to what Ms. Keegan was saying earlier, and you talked about the message is getting on social media and creating kind of fervor. I think it's very important to remember that just because someone has a voice on social media, that doesn't mean that that's a factual source of information. So to kind of fall back into yourself a little bit, make sure that you're getting your facts from mass.gov or cdc.gov with regards to COVID, or the town's resources available online, or to give us a call. But I think part of that too is as we go through these couple of weeks, and right now it's, I think most people just kind of getting used to, the streets being a little quieter, and that we're getting used to the social distancing. However, as we get into weeks 2 and 3, especially the kids being home, things are going to get ramped up. So I think it's very important for people to be mindful, to take 10 minutes a day to kind of shut everything off and take some deep breaths and kind of think about what's coming up for the day ahead of them. Look at resources. There's multiple apps. There's all kinds of imagery, aromatherapy, things of that nature to kind of help with some of the stress. Talking it out too can help as well. But I think knowledge is key. Knowledge is power. So the more informed we are, the less we're going to be concerned about the unknown or misinformation. So if we can accurately combat that, I think that does a whole lot to kind of quell fears.
And I think that goes along with that, and Tom's point's right on, but one of the things that we're heading into the better weather, which is a good thing. So, we're talking about 70-degree temperatures by Friday, so that's a good sign. So I encourage people to get out and walk, get out and walk around, but obviously keep the distance from other people, but get out and walk and, take in the fresh air and enjoy, some of the surroundings of the community. Get to know the community a little bit better during this period of time. So, a lot of people live in town, have never really focused or even gone around town to see what we have to offer. And this is probably a good time to do that because, there's not a lot of programs available right now.
Right.
And people are going to get sick of being on the internet, and they're going to watching TV and watching movies at home. But So get out and walk. Get out and enjoy the fresh air and enjoy some of the surroundings that are right here in Foxborough.
And every study I've read that talks about nature and mental health says that it's a natural de-stressor.
It is absolutely.
Second anyone steps outside, there's a natural reaction to being out there.
True.
So I hit up the Lane property on Sunday with my kids, and we were out there for a couple hours. It was great.
It's great. So I think what you're going to find, and you know, it's funny how things happen in throughout time and throughout history, but we're probably at a time when probably most of us would admit that families have become a lot decentralized over the years, and so something like this will actually bring the families back together, and I think that's actually a good thing for all of us. And so I had this conversation with a number of my colleagues a few weeks ago, or last week actually, where I said, you know, when we come out on the other side of this, and we will, I mean, I'm very certain of that, but it's going to be different. We're going to do things differently, because this is one of those watershed moments where the world will evolve differently and things will happen differently because of it. But I think, you know, and as I look at it, there's going to be a little bit of pain and discomfort through this process, but we're going to get through it, and I think we're going to come out on the other side in a much better place.
Yeah, I think you're right. We just getting there feels like a long way right now,
right.
Especially, so I'm a parent of 3. Yeah. My elementary age kids are all at home, and I know Dr. Bertos has been very communicative, as have the principals and the teachers. We've heard from all of our kids' teachers, which is incredible. The decision to call cancel the school before Governor Baker did, was that something that you and Dr. Bertos talked about together?
We did. We talked actually on Friday, and we really were concerned about what that meant, because there are different schools that thought about, you know, should we cancel school and put kids back in the community? And we had that debate back and forth, and ultimately we landed in the place of canceling school for at least 2 weeks. A lot of the districts around us had done the same, and when that happens, it creates a problem even for the school system, because there's a lot of teachers that have kids and their kids are not in school, and as a result, that creates a daycare situation for them. So we recognized that and fell and landed in the place that, you know, it probably is a good idea to cancel school. And as it turned out, you know, just a matter of 2 days later, the governor comes out and says, let's cancel for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks. Yeah. So I think, you know, my bigger concern is that going to be enough? Because you know, I've heard different schools of thought now that school, you know, it may take a while before we get back to school, and that's a challenge for all of us, you know, because we want to make sure the kids, you know, stay educated and, you know, continue to learn. But more importantly, it gives them things to do and keeps them focused, at least for a good portion of the day. You know, some of the colleges and universities can go online and do that. Not every school can do that, especially at the younger ages. It's disappointing to see that a lot of the college and high school sports have all been canceled. You know, I have a son that was playing college baseball, and his season got canceled, and it was his last year playing. So to lose your final year was really kind of a shock to his ambitions. But it's okay. I mean, you know, in the end, it's going to be fine. And I think you look back on this situation and you say, look, you know, there's a lot more important things to worry about at this point in time.
Agreed, because what I want to talk about next too is the impact this is having on senior citizens in town, and I think a lot of the media that I've been aware of has been saying that this virus is impacting the elderly more so than the young. How can we as a community help and protect the senior citizens in this town who helped make the town what it is?
That's a great question. So like Bill was saying, the administrators, the department heads throughout the town have been fantastic to work with, and one of them being Mark Craig. And Human Services, you have Pam McGuire and Christine LaRose as well. And they've been doing a fantastic job, as well as the staff of the Council on Aging. So even though they're kind of closing down shop a little bit as we encourage the social distancing, they're still hard at work making sure that we're reaching out to our elders, reaching out to people, making sure we have those contacts, even to meet the basic needs such as food, medicine, allay some concerns. So we're working on that communication line now as we speak, to directly interact with that community, to make sure that, you know, while we're doing all this, that we're not losing sight of, you know, what we are as a community. I mean, we're taking care of each other, being kind to one another and being thoughtful of one another, and I think that's what it comes down to. But you know, with regards to that, I think we're really doing well in terms of the communication systems. To go back to what Mr. Keegan was saying with communications, so the Southeastern Massachusetts 911 District, which is run by Robert Doan and Eric Berg, the executive director and deputy director, respectively, they have done an amazing job creating up communication systems, creating up redundant systems so that if we have to, we can change locations from dispatch areas, God forbid if we had to isolate. So we have in triplicate right now, and this was all because of Rob and Eric doing a fantastic job. But part of that is to incorporate communication, lines of communication with other ancillary town organizations so we can all stay in touch at a moment's notice. And this is something that takes a lot of technical savvy, and these guys are doing an amazing job.
So we can feel confident that seniors who need help are getting help, and great. And
but I think that's more from a structured perspective. That we're here to help and provide the services of, as Tom talked about, is that we have the we have the infrastructure in place through Human Services and through the Council on Aging to provide the assistance that they all need. But remember, they're still isolated, and so if it's important that if you have a neighbor that's elderly, give them a call, ask them how they're doing. Keep the contacting going, even if it's just a few minutes to check each day, to say, hey, how you doing? How's it going? Do you need anything? Do you need me to get anything at the store for you? That type of thing, because that was the kind of things that will make a huge difference when we come out the other side of this. It's because I think there's, the Council on Aging was doing a tremendous job of putting new programs in place, and our numbers were up significantly over the past year. And now those programs are off because of the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
So that was creating a lot of good connections amongst the senior community, and I hate to see those connections, go by the wayside because of what the situation that we're in now. So make sure that you connect. If you have an elderly person near you, connect with them. You don't have to necessarily knock on their door, or if you want, you can knock on them, but offer them the assistance that they need to try and get through this.
Great. The last sort of group I want to make sure is taken care of too is the Foxborough Food Pantry. I've seen a little bit online that there's a call for blood donations, and it seems to be that people are answering that call. Is the Food Pantry, I know it's a separate organization from the town, are they being taken care of? Have you any contact with them? Do they need donations?
Well, I heard last night that there is some rather significant donations coming in for this later this week.
Great.
So they'll be having some assistance on that level. We're also we've been contacted by various folks about some materials that can be made available, and so we're putting them in touch with the Food Pantry for that reason, or with Mark Craig as Tom said, that so we can get stuff out to the seniors if we need to.
Perfect. That's good to hear. Yeah. I guess one of my last questions is, what can we do as an individual to help the community besides just the social distancing? Is there anything that your offices need from us?
Well, obviously communication is important, and so we want people to constantly check the websites for the latest information. And we've said I said it last night during the Selectmen's meeting. I said, this is something we've never dealt with before, and so I think suggestions are always good, and don't be afraid to say that, hey, even if it's something that we've already doing, feel free to make a suggestion, because those are what lead to really good solutions in the end. Is we're open to suggestions. We're trying to do the best we can, but we don't know it all, and we want to make sure that if there are great ideas, that people let us know what they are.
Okay. Great. I'll take that. Anything from you, Tom, that we should be doing?
I think as long as you're doing those little steps, making sure you're clean, making sure your hand hygiene is well, just taking seriously the measures that have been put forth, because I think all the indecision and the confusion comes from half measures. So the government obviously decided to go with full measures to give everybody the seriousness of what's going on, so we can actually try to curb this. Understand that, I think we're all in the same boat. We're all a little apprehensive at times, but for the most part, things being taken care of. Just settle in and kind of wait and do the best you can to kind of, just follow through it at the individual level, and the rest of it, like Bill said, we'll get through it, and the services will still be provided, and we'll do the best we can to keep sure that, it is business as usual.
Yeah.
So somebody said the best line the other day, says, let's take care of each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best message we can send to anyone.
So I feel like that community, this Foxborough community, does a pretty good job of that too. So, well, yeah, let's keep doing that. Is there any other information that you need to get out to us?
Constantly, again, check our website, www.foxboroma.gov. Click on the departments and come down to the Board of Health, and that's where a lot of our COVID-19 information is located. Where I'm going to be starting to do some Facebook Live broadcasts from my office and Town Hall to try and provide up-to-date information on what's happening in and around Foxborough. Like I said, we have a lot of information from the state and federal government right now. What we don't have is a lot of information about Foxborough, and we're trying to get as much as we can in people's hands. And that's what we're trying to do.
That's great to hear. Anything from you, Tom?
I think Ms. Geegan said it best. I think we're just going to continue to kind of keep an eye on things, and I think if anybody has any questions, especially related to COVID-19 or exposure to contacts, they can always give the Board of Health call or give the Fire Department a call, and we'll be happy to do our best to answer those questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for being here. I know personally I've been looking for some leadership in this arena, and been looking at our elected officials. Some inspire confidence and some really don't. Just talking with both of you today has really inspired confidence in me, and just take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath. That's important.
We'll get through it.
So we will get through it.
Well, thank you both for being here. I also want to thank Paul Beck, our director, Mike Weber, our technical director, and Lauren Bitar for programming. I'm Jared Craig. Thanks for being with us today, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.